You're listening to Advocast, the Adult Education Podcast. This podcast is being sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and by Burlington English, the group that's been publishing educational material used by millions of learners around the world. Today, Burlington is a major supplier of digital material for individuals learning English. Burlington continues to grow, enter new markets, and introduce new innovations in language, teaching, and learning. And now, here are co-hosts Erin Vobornik and Sara Haghighi.
Hello, Sara.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. So I have been teaching in person now for the past few weeks.
Oh, wow. How's it going?
Oh, it's so nice to be back in front of students and feel that energy. The one thing I haven't appreciated is filling up my gas tank
Oh my
on
God.
the way.
You're telling me.
I don't know what your prices are, but the last time I went, it was $5.40 per gallon.
Oh, wow.
What's it like?
$5 here too.
Yeah.
The gas prices are going up and up and up, and it's getting harder and harder to do anything. And yeah, exactly. That makes it harder for our students and even instructors to get to work, and that's very hard. But you know what? I've heard from a lot of people that because the gas prices are going up, they are looking for a better job. They want to improve their lives. So we're getting a lot of people coming in and asking for whether GED classes or ESL classes because they want to improve their lives and they want to make some change. So in a very not perfect way, it's somehow good for us in that aspect that we are getting a lot of interest and the interest rates are going up and up as the gas prices are going up and up.
That's true.
Yeah.
That I've noticed that as well. So, I'm willing to pay that that extra money if it means we get more connect people with those better jobs that they need and get them upskilled.
The students, with all the skills that they need to make their lives better. Yeah, for sure. Good.
So talking about skills, we have some amazing people on the episode today. We are going to be joined by fellow state advocate for adult education fellows. I shouldn't have said fellow first. Double fellowed from 2021. That's where we met them. Jackie Aguilera and Audrey Nelson, both from the great state of Texas.
Woo-hoo.
And they're going to teach us all about crafting an elevator pitch.
Ooh, that's exciting. Yes. So both Jackie and Audrey, they are not new faces to us, but we're going to learn more about them. So I'm excited. So let's take a short break. And then when we come back, we will have our guests on.
You've been listening to Advocast, the Adult Education Podcast. Your hosts have been Erin Vobornik and Sara Haghighi. This podcast is sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. And I'm your producer, Jeffrey Abramowitz. You can listen to this episode on COAB's YouTube channel or at www.coab.org.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Audrey.
Oh, good afternoon.
Ladies. Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Advocast.
Thank you so much. It's exciting. It's fun. I've been watching you guys, listening to you guys, and wow, now we're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being our wonderful guest. We are so excited to talk to you today and learn more and more about you and from you. So how about if we just start by a short introduction? Obviously, Erin and I know you well. We worked together for over a year. But just imagine, this is the first day. And you want to introduce yourself to us and what you do. So how about if we start from Audrey? So Audrey, would you like to introduce yourself to us and to our listeners and viewers?
Sure, yeah, of course. And we're happy to be here today. I'm so happy to be a part of this program. And I am from the great state of Texas. And I'm down by the coast, close to Galveston. and I work with in Galveston County. I live in Harris County, which is closer to Houston. I have been in adult ed for about 15 years now. I have, although this is 15 years in adult ed, I've been in education for about 40 years. So I am just a strong proponent of education, and that's my heart, and that's what I believe in. And so when I transitioned from K-12, it was an automatic, it was a very smooth transition into adult ed. I started in adult ed with ESL, and I have taught ESL, GED, IET, CSA, the whole gamut.
So
wonderful. Yeah. So I've covered it all, and I love all of my students. So I have taught 3-year-olds all the way to 90-year-olds. So it's been an amazing journey. I've also, as you have mentioned before, I served last year as an advocate. And I never thought of myself as being an advocate, but I've always advocated for children in education. And so when I started the fellowship, I mean, I was walking on the beach and I knew I had a voice, but my voice had been limited. And so now this has offered an opportunity where it can go full spectrum. And you guys have been amazing to ask me to come. I'm like, oh, yeah. So what I did, I made the right step with that. So I graduated from school here in Texas. And
contributed back to the community in Texas, huh? Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was so amazing.
And I love what you said about not seeing yourself as an advocate and then finding that in yourself throughout that fellowship, because I certainly feel the same way. I was dazzled by a lot of the more extroverted people in our cohort and thought, oh my goodness. And yes, I'm thrilled to have you here, Audrey. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And speaking of some extrovert people, Jack is one of those people who have always inspired me. I love her energy, and I just want to say that your passion gives me energy. So I'm like, yes, let's do this. So tell us about yourself and how you got involved in advocacy.
Sure. Fantastic. Hey, thank you guys so much again for being here. You know, Audrey said it. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity whenever you get called not only to serve, but then to be a voice. So this is just awesome, you guys, and congratulations for this forum again. I'm Jackie Aguilera. I currently serve in the Mayor's Office for Adult Literacy, but I have had the pleasure of serving in our community in various degrees, from community colleges to universities, nonprofits, former Reed commissions, and then this new office for the mayor. I have been in education. I was born into it. I've got ministers and teachers and all kinds of fun people in my family. But, you know, it's really a passion. I don't think many people have come into the field going, yes, I majored in adult education and all my resources are going there. You know, usually people have dropped in for whatever happens in life and opportunities come up, and then the passion, the cause, the mission gets in your blood. And you don't turn away, you keep churning at it and you build it. And it is indeed wonderful to be serving with Audrey for Texas, now, you know, being graduates of the advocacy program, and to be in a position to share not only what we've learned from so many wonderful mentors and leaders, but then learned in our own experiences. So thank you again for asking us to be here today.
Thank you. And I can certainly hear the minister. I know at one point in our training, you referred to yourself as an adult ed evangelist. That really stuck with me.
Yeah, you know, it's when you believe in something, it makes it a lot easier to talk about. And I think that's really what we strike a chord when we talk about advocacy, and really getting people to feel comfortable with that word and to really break it down to, what are you passionate about? What are the basics?
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
So we know that we were all together in the SAFE cohort through COABE, but I'm interested in kind of what got you involved in advocacy. from both of you. Kind of what prompted you to send in that application? If you were anything like me, you sent it in and thought, oh, there's no way.
Did
There's
you
no
two know
way.
each other before SAFE or?
Well,
We had met maybe 15 years ago when I first started. And then all of a sudden, and then I said, I know that name, Jackie Aguilera. And then she said, oh, Audrey, we worked together, when we trained. We did training back in 2005 or 2009, somewhere in there. But it's been over 10 years. And she looks the same.
Wow.
full circle.
Yeah.
And the thing is with advocacy, like so many other people, you shy away from it because you think, all right, I don't want to cross the line. I know we're not, if you're directly in the field, we're not supposed to lobby, and how I don't want to get in trouble. And it becomes like a dance of your spirit wants to, but you're not sure what all the rules are. You're not sure what to say. And in my case, I had so much passion, but I had very little statistics and data and that formal way of taking what in essence is a big rah, 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 and bring it down to someone's level that goes, okay, I'm excited. And wow, is that statistic true? I didn't know that. Is that what's happening? Is that what our dollars go towards? And how much money did you say that was? These are the things that add to your passion to make it a case. And there's a big difference. And that was something that I was determined to learn. When I was interviewed by Sharon for the program, it was like, look, I can shout off the rooftops, but I want to be able to do it where people will actually listen and not just walk by and think I'm the crazy person on the rooftop. So that was my motivation, and I said, hey, if they take me, I'm going to get everything I can out of it because I want to optimize my game. I want to be listened to.
Wonderful.
And again, too, like Jackie was saying when I did interview, but my aha moment came. It was over the Christmas break, and I was walking along the seawall, the beach, and I just kept hearing this voice saying that you have a voice, and my students, that is louder than my students. And it said, if not you, then who? Who's going to do it? And I said, I had kept going over the email over and over again. And I was thinking, just as Jackie said, I'm not an advocate. I can't do this. I probably won't make it. And then after I heard that voice, so that I said, do it. And I put it in and look what happened. And I had other doubters too. Oh yeah. Because I shared it. No, you'll never be a national advocate. You're just a teacher. You're just this. And you won't do it. And then I came in, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I am over my head. But I knew that my ESL students, their voice, the person from Salvador or, from Turkey, they just couldn't speak that language, but I could. And so I found from within to say, yes, I can do this. And it's been my inspiration the whole time too.
Wonderful.
That
Yeah,
is.
I totally agree. As a former adult ed student, I had a voice and I was pretty adamant to raise my voice and speak up whenever needed, but I needed help. I needed someone louder to help me with that. And that was actually one of my reasons when I applied for the SAFE position. And I loved and enjoyed all the experience that I received from COABE.
Yes.
You two presented at the COABE conference. Erin and I had the pleasure of attending the session you both presented. And your whole presentation was about elevator speech. And we loved it. But for people who didn't get the opportunity to be there and be in your session, how do you define elevator speech and how do you prepare for it?
Awesome question. And when you get the vision of the elevator, course to build up. And I think that's one thing that I really enjoyed working with Audrey on this, because I'm the balloon and I float all over the place, but without an anchor, I can end up who knows where. And I really have to tip my hat to Audrey because, there's something about us evangelistic types. We'll be like everywhere, all over the place, but we need the ground, to kind of, okay, focus. And so when Audrey and I started talking about this situation and how we were going to present advocacy, we looked at it a lot of as what we have familiar, which is, in business class and things of presenting yourself when you're getting those soft skills. You talk about your elevator pitch. What can you say in 30 seconds, in a minute, that actually catches someone's attention? And in looking at this and getting people comfortable with the whole feel is, okay, what can you do in a minute or less that has your biggest confidence, and you put it out there that makes someone say, I want to know more. And I think that's really what helped guide us down that pathway. Now, Audrey came up with this amazing outline that she submitted and is part of this whole presentation that helps you actually fill in that information. And I really thank her for that, because, again, that's that guiding tool.
And you shared that handout in the conference platform too, right? So anyone who was registered can get in there and pull those handouts and reference them. And I love what you noted about getting someone's attention in 30 seconds, because I was in a training and I was told, and I trust them, that when you can see somebody's face, you have 20 seconds to get their attention and to get that most important information out there. If you cannot see the person, you have 7 seconds. And I thought, wow, right? Like you have to be prepared. And let me tell you, my first few legislative visits, I was not adequately prepared. So I certainly took notes on your presentation.
Wow, thank you.
So Audrey, how did you kind of, according to your outline, like how do you prepare for that elevator pitch?
Well, as Jackie said, and I do training in adult ed and for the college also with allied health. So I do professional skills training, and we're part of Texas Workforce. And so the idea is for the students to get out into the workforce. And so it's really applicable there. And the students are all hesitant also. But we know that they only, just as you said, that you just can't bring your resume and start reading it when you're talking to someone. You have to know a little bit about yourself. And so that's kind of the premise that I went on. So after having them to do their resume, know a little bit about themselves, now let's go ahead and just put it into this platform. Just pick out some of those things, what we're passionate about, what our soft skills are, what our traits are that are great that we want employers to know. I use that same premise to find out what would the legislators need to know, what would my directors need to know, what would anyone need to know as I spoke to them about adult ed. And so I've had opportunities to speak with friends that are, not familiar with adult ed. And so I just start using some of those things, telling them about myself and what adult ed does, and then what impact it has on my life. And so from that, and using the same thing from the workforce, and then just putting it together, and those two kind of synced in together. So it worked. It was a good fit, and so it worked well. But you kind of have to know yourself first, and then what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then from knowing your strengths and weaknesses, then you can go ahead and pull on that, and you're able to talk more if you know your strengths. And so I'm saying, don't focus on your weakness. Just talk about what you're strong in. And then as you do it more and more, it becomes easier. And Erin, just like you, I fumbled. And when I met the legislature last year and the representatives, I was just mumbling, but I had my business card and I knew what to do. And so I just shoved it down and said, if you need any more information, contact me. And they were still happy to have it. So I think it's just saying your name, putting something out there will get that attention. So they don't care if you stumble but it's just they want to know that you're passionate about something and what direction you're going in.
And the big thing on that piece that connects it all is you're talking about an elevator pitch that's connected to the educate and elevate resource for COAVE. And again, you're not having to go out and invent your own statistics, your own plan, even come up and create your own different ideas. All the tools are there. We have the media toolkit. We have the legislation toolkit. We have the means to advocate using our phones, using email blasts. And again, these are incredible tools, and going off of that whole idea to lift and really focusing on, and I think Audrey hit a very important point, know yourself. A lot of times we're looking at all these resources and all these statistics and going, how am I supposed to remember all this and what, and it's like, find one thing that resonates with you, one thing that you're super passionate about, and soon you'll have two or three. With me, it was the investment cost. To look at Texas, the state of Texas, great state of Texas, huge state, 726 whopping dollars per adult student of federal funding. And that's if you're in the federal funding stream. We're not even talking about the non-federal funded programs who have to struggle for independent funding, whatever they can get per learner. And we know good and well that it takes a lot more than $726 to educate an adult to help them take care of their family or get workforce skills. And that right there becomes a shocker. And then, of course, to compare it with in Houston, we did the research through our office with the Houston's Adult Literacy Blueprint, and the drill down here for Harris County, looking at PAC studies and put all these together, is 1 in 3 Houstonians, major Houston, urban city, 1 in 3 are functionally illiterate. 1 out of 3 people. So, when you are able to go, wow, okay, why am I here? Why do I want to talk to you? Well, 1 in 3 people in Houston are functionally illiterate. Do you even know what that means? And it's not just reading and writing. Then you've got a hook.
Yes.
So you kind of, Audrey, you mentioned some important things to bring to elevator pitch, and Jackie, you mentioned some data to have those data ready, and COAVE resources also help with finding the data that we need. But what are the other important things that we need to include in this elevator pitch that we can just use in 20 seconds or 7 seconds that we have someone's attention?
Well, absolutely. Numbers are great, but numbers are nothing without people, and people become nothing without numbers. So you have to combine them. You have to put them together. So having those stories, Audrey mentions our learners, of course. Who are we here for? We're here for the people we serve. So when you can tell the stories, when you can give the examples, when you can share the impact that, Texas Capital Bank invested $10,000 in a program in Third Ward. As a result, there were 18 additional GED graduates. Half of those were employed. The other half are job seekers now, but they are job seeking with the empowerment of a high school equivalency certificate.
Right.
These are the outcomes. And that's really, the constituents. And when you're talking to legislators too, they're voted in. So when we're talking about our learners who are becoming citizens, who are starting to become participating, contributing members of society, that also means voting power.
That's
and
true.
When we talk on those levels, people's ears tend to perk up.
That's true.
Yeah,
What do you think,
that's
Audrey?
And the way I put it together, the first thing you are going to do is introduce yourself. And then, and as Jackie said, I find that when we talk to the people that we vote for, the representatives in our area, they're tending more to listen because they will get our votes. And so when you focus on that, and then you tell them what you do and where you're located, that perks up their ears too. And they said, oh, and then you said you're part of this, our community here, then they're willing to listen. So if you give them that little background, tell them where you're from, what you want to do, and then what can they do for you. And then when you talk about, and as Jackie said, my mission is the education part. and that adult education bridges that educational gap. And so I focus a lot on that. And then again, too, I focus a lot on literacy because as the number said about how many illiterate students, people are in the area. And it's not just for, the young, but it's for the older also. And then sometimes I do share my story of, how I do have people in my family that are low literacy level or non-literate. And so that kind of perks up their ears of what is done. And then how, because of the program, how we've been able to move from poverty to become self-sustaining adults and be a part of the economic growth. And so I always kind of include some stories about how it impacts me or maybe about my students and share what's going on. And then we can move from there.
Wonderful. So this is all very, very helpful, kind of breaking it down, because looking at all of those educate and elevate resources, there's so much data, right? And Jackie, I heard you say what you focus on. Audrey, I heard you say that you focus on something slightly different based on your passion, your expertise. And I think that's something really important to keep in mind, is we don't have to advocate every single thing. In fact, it's very counterintuitive to try to do that. Earlier on, you both had mentioned kind of making sure you're saying things that legislators want to hear. And we advocate to quite a variety of different viewpoints and backgrounds. So how do you determine what to emphasize? Like how do you find that out? What research do you do? What have you found to be kind of successful for you?
I know one of the key things is to go look at the committees that legislators have served, the different bills that they back, the different initiatives that they have been involved with, and looking at their pages, even just reading their biography, information about what they care about, what they say they care about, and latch on to some key words and key terms. There are a number of legislators here who have very different ideas about what adult education is, what education is for the state. And yet it is possible to speak with them, to get in an invitation to at least speak with their representatives. I've given this example before, and it was so meaningful because it was the last person I thought I would get to speak with in any way, which was Senator Ted Cruz. And I happened to be invited on a DC fly-in. And I'll tell you this about advocacy. Get involved with your networks who belong to things like the Greater Houston Partnership or the very large types of groups across the city, because there are a lot of meetings that go on that you might not have access to, but they do as members. And if you can get invited to some of these things, if they have an open forum, that is an excellent place to try and raise questions. At the time with this forum, with this DC fly-in with Senator Cruz, I was able to ask a question based on his support of the school choice legislation. He's a big believer in choosing and having parents having rights to education choices. So again, I was able to play on that and at least get his attention, which was leading to an invitation so that I got to talk to the director. Now, I gave information, we shared information, again, you have no control over where it's going because you're not a lobbyist. All you're doing is informing and educating. And I think that's one of the key things to let go of is anytime you're speaking with a legislator, remember, you're not there to tell them how to vote, what to do. You're there to do what you do any other time, which for most of us is teach, to share a golden nugget of an education source for them to think or go, wow, I never heard of that before.
Amen. Amen. That's exactly it. Yes, raising awareness, teaching the community and public about what we do and how we contribute to the community. Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to add one thing with that. Last summer, Jack and I did a state conference, and we did something very similar. And one activity that we had the participants to do, and we had directors, teachers, we had a gamut. It was all different, and some were newbies and some were professionals with advocacy. And so we had them to go onto our state website, and they used keywords to put in there, whether they put literacy or school of choice or whatever that was in there. And then the legislature, those words would lead them to the right person too. So that was another way to do that, identify what they want and some of the needs there. So you can do that. So it's those websites really are very helpful in there because it's public information and other things are in there. So you can go back to past tweets or past podcasts or past social media to find out what their strengths, what they support and what they do address and talk to.
That's great advice. And I love the advice to think of it as what we do, right? We're teaching. And what I hear a lot of pushback from teachers when I encourage them to use their voices, I'm not political, right? I don't want to get mixed up in politics. And it really isn't related to politics at all. It's just talking about what we do, talking about our successes, and hoping that percolates up into some real change.
Absolutely. It's investment value, and it's the same thing. We do that with our communities. We do that with different things that we're involved in. If we believed in them and we want buy-in, and that's what it is. And it's even if someone does not do anything at all, they had that 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you were able to get, where now they cannot say that they've never heard of, or they never knew that. Or maybe they might still say it, but in the back of their mind, they know better, and you had your opportunity. And it goes down to, this is nothing new, but if not us, then who? And again, just like with voting, if you don't vote, don't complain. If you're not going to help be a voice, don't complain about our situation, because we need the voices. And that voice can be something as little as a tweet or a post. It could be showing up at a town hall like I tend to do, and I just wait for the day when someone goes, "Who invited you?" I'll do it because it's an opportunity, and just like recently with Senator Carol Alvarado, same situation where it was like, I want to ask about supporting adult ed, but I asked it in a way that how can I help you be a voice in adult education? And when I shared that 1 in 3, she was like, I have never heard that. And she spoke with me afterwards and she said, I have been advocating for education my entire career, and I need you to tell me more. Get back with me because I want to know how I can help. So notice it's a little different than saying, hey, will you help us versus how can I help you? And I think that approach is really successful, at least what I have found with some of the people that I've been with.
That is wonderful. Thank you both so much for these, as you called them, golden nuggets of advice. And I know it's going to get some people feeling more comfortable about getting out there and chatting. And you were both kind enough to connect us with a student from Texas as well, who has been highly successful. So let's take a short break, and then Jackie and Audrey, you are going to join Sara and I and the amazing Olivia Quintanilla as we talk about her experiences in adult education.
Fantastic.
You've been listening to Advocast, the adult education podcast. Your hosts have been Erin, Vobornik, and Sara Haghighi. This podcast is sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. And I'm your producer, Jeffrey Abramowitz. You can listen to this episode on COAB's YouTube channel or at www.coab.org.
Hi, Olivia. Welcome to Advocast.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Olivia, we hear a lot about you and we've heard that you have a strong voice. How about if you just start by telling us about yourself and how you got involved in adult education?
So my story is fairly long. I did actually become a mother at a young age. I had to drop out of high school. So I, just kind of as a mother would, just cared for their children, and try to give, their children as much as they could for themselves. And moving on forward, I decided to start to think about myself and my education and where I was going, because I can't push my kids to do something that I'm not going to do for myself. So that's when I actually pursued to get my GED. And it did take me a long time, let's say about 10 plus years. But I wanted to make sure my children were, just aware of what is actually going to go on in my situation, as far as being a parent and a role model. So yes, I did receive my my GED in 2016, I believe. And after that, I was hired on into adult education here at the Adult Education Center, where I am now an educator coordinator. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I'm just learning the transition from being a student to the experience and now advocating for adult ed is extremely a blessing. I feel that I'm making a change as far as sharing my story and letting others know that they're not alone out there. There's a lot of individuals that are afraid to step up and embarrassed. I was embarrassed to share my story. And now having the opportunity, I see it is a life-changing experience. Education in general is. I come from a background with parents who are illiterate. They have, minimum education themselves. And I believe that education is based at, it starts at home. It starts at the root where the parents are. And that's where you try to, as a parent, you try to do the best you can for your children, but without certain educational skills or knowledge, or being able to read a certain paper that comes home from a teacher, or trying to join the PTA, just in general, it's heartbreaking to see these individuals with the struggles and barriers that they have to go through, and just not even aware, or don't even acknowledge it themselves. So, but yes, it's always been a blessing to be able to come from a Latino background, to where a lot of my family were limited to education, or just trying to follow their dreams and goals. Education has a big impact on that, and I just feel that I'm very blessed that I was given that opportunity to find the Adult Education Center, to walk through those doors and acknowledge my barriers and continue to walk through it, receive my associate's degree in social and behavioral science. And now I'm on to my bachelor's in business management.
That is incredible, Olivia. Yeah.
And that just sums up a little bit. I believe me, it's a long story short.
Oh, I'm really moved by the fact that you took that huge step of walking through those doors, and now you walk through those doors every single day, but to go to work.
Exactly.
And I, as a teacher, someone who works in the field, who has not had the experience of being an adult education student, I try to bring that voice into my classroom, because just the look on my students' faces when they connect with somebody like you who has had that success, who has been in the same shoes that they have, and they can, it's like a mirror to the future. They can see their potential in ways that they couldn't before. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I know we're going to have students listen to this and they're going to, maybe for the first time, see that potential in themselves.
And, we had news coverage during, my SAFE tenure, and they did a filming here and focusing on adult education in Houston and the connection between family literacy and adult literacy. And it was a wonderful story. And Olivia was part of that story. And I, really want to thank her, because she's very humble and she would have never brought that up. But she, to the entire nation, shared her story, because she's that passionate. And I tell you guys, when you're talking about advocacy and you're thinking about, oh, well, I don't want to get into politics. You look at a face like Olivia's, and you realize this is not about politics. This is about people. It's about equitable rights to education and opportunity. And that is not a political cause. That is just a right to have a quality life for yourself and your family. And it's something that when you think about advocacy, think about equity and access, and see people like Olivia. It makes a big difference.
That is so true. That is so true. Your story, Olivia, will help a lot of different people, not only students, but adult ed programs, because they can use your story as an example to advocate for all adult ed students and all people who are involved in the work of adult education. And thank you so much for sharing your story. And you mentioned that it took you some time to finish and get your GED. And this is very normal. People don't think, people who haven't gone through the whole process of getting their GED, they may think, oh, you just go through the program and very quickly you will get your GED. But in reality is that no, life is difficult. And people go through some difficulties that they have to find ways to be able to study and take one test at a time and get ready for GED and pass all those tests and be able to graduate. So what is something that helped you to become successful? And this is something, some type of advice that you're giving to someone who wants to join a GED program, or some type of advice for someone who started but they are struggling. They really don't want to drop out, but they are really struggling. What is something that helped you to be successful?
So I would say, and I say this to some of the students that I come across, and I tell them the hardest step is to acknowledge, is to walk through those doors as I did, make that call, just asking for help. That's the hardest step, because once you've accomplished that, you're acknowledging that you need that help. You're acknowledging that you are seeking that education, that you are wanting to make a better person out of not just yourself, prove to me, like I mentioned, I didn't just prove to my family, my children. You're proving to yourself. And I think that self-care has always been something that we lack. A lot of us lack self-care, whether it be giving us that time, that breather, taking that time before you walk in that door to, take care of your children, or it could be anything of that sort, but just acknowledge, making that acknowledgement that you have a barrier, that you have that obstacle that you want to accomplish for yourself.
That is a very good point, because a lot of people, when they hear self-care, they may think of pampering, but sometimes self-care is to improve your personal life, improve the quality of life for your children and whoever lives with you. That is a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do say the breather before is usually what I do when I get home. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this on, turn in a role from, getting out of your whatever 9 to 5, 9 to 8 job, and then you're on your way home to take care of your family. And I say that's what I do. I usually just sit in my car and just say, okay, round 2, let's go. We're getting, let's get this started. But that's just how usually I usually explain it, because a lot of these stories that come through, and I of course, being the experience myself, it's a little bit easier for me to understand what they're saying and what they're trying to say, and then I tell them, come on, you can't give up, this is, everybody's different. It's a self-paced program. We're trying, whatever your needs are, we're here. We have the resources. Education is a very important key in life. It's like I always say, it's life-changing. It's something that you're actually, there's no age limit. We have people, an individual actually that called, he said, I'm 56 years old, and I think I'm too old to receive my GED. And I said, sir, there is no age limit on education. You can receive your GED. You can go on to college if you like. You can do whatever you want to do. And I said, well, what is the main reason why you're calling me today? And I said, what made you make this phone call? And he said, I want to do it for myself. And I said, there you go. You answered your own question. You see, this is what you want to do for yourself. I said, so you're going to come on in. I said, my name's Olivia. I'll be more than happy to help you. And I will be there every step of the way, whatever you're needing. And if you feel that doubt in your mind, believe me, give me a call and I'll reassure you that this is something that you're doing for yourself, not for anyone else. So,
Wow.
It's just, that was a story that I was like, oh, wow, like this is fantastic.
You just have that presence, Olivia, where I know you are changing lives daily. And that story is a great example of it. And I again want to go back to the fact that you have experience both on the student side and now in the coordinator side of it. And so I think you can offer some really valuable and unique insight. And so I'd like to ask, what's something that you would actually like to see change in adult education?
So the awareness, I believe, is something that not a lot of people acknowledge, that education is a factor in life. And I don't think that there is that lack of awareness. And I think it's just that with the advocates that we have, or as advocates ourselves, trying to make those connections, see where those roots are, network, try to, like Jackie mentioned, just try to get into that one interview or that one, luncheon, and just let your voice be heard of what adult ed is about and how it's, because since it's been taken very lightly, and I feel like it's sometimes overlooked, and it's hard, and it's hard to stress, like you just want to shake somebody and say, this is important. Education is important, and there is no, like I can't stress it enough. Age is not, there's not a limit on education. You just need to focus and see what exactly our community is needing. Like that's and it just gets me riled up, and I feel like you're just like, just want to throw something across the room, but it's just the awareness. I believe the awareness is just something that I feel is lacked. It's not and you feel like I do when I do my host spew, when I'm speaking to somebody, and I said, man, I feel like I rehearsed this like 20 million, like I said this like 20 million times today, but you know what? I'll say it 20 million and whatever, I'll say it on and on and on until it gets through, this individual's head. Oh, okay. And these connections, and if you bother them and along, good enough time, then they'll be like, you know what? Let me give you some time. Let me know what you're,
Right.
what you're actually trying to tell me. And that's kind of, how we usually do it, so it's just, that's how I feel needs, well, that's what I need. I think that needs to be actually a little bit more focused on is the awareness of adult education and education in
Wonderful.
general.
Yeah, and that's advocacy, right? That is at the heart of it. It
I was
is.
just gonna pick up my pad and throw it across, but I was like, no.
No, I love your. I saw you getting riled up. I mean, the shaking, the
Right.
throwing.
Right.
That's
It's
why we record this virtually, so that we're safe.
right. No,
So
but
I love how everybody, I mean, I can sense this passion from you, Olivia, from Audrey, from Jackie, and I know Sarah and I we feel that way as well. And so we like to give everybody like a chance at the end of an episode to just share a final thought with listeners. And our listeners might be adult education professionals. They might be outside the field. They may be students. So please focus on whatever member of the audience that you'd like. But I'd like us to go around, and if you could just take 30 seconds, 1 minute to just give some final thoughts to our listeners as we wrap up. And I'll start with Audrey.
Okay, yeah, yay, Olivia. That was so good. That was so good. Thank you. And picking up from what she said, it doesn't matter how young or how old you are, you can always advocate for adult ed. And it's just you find your passion. And the thing is that sometimes we're afraid, as she had said, to go out and speak up, that we don't have the resources. But know that there's so many out there, and COAB has a plethora of, of information for us to use. So when you just need something to fill in or put in there to get you started, you can do that. So it's for the young and it's for the old, it's for the new teacher. And that's what we heard so much in Seattle, that I'm new to this. I'm just a teacher. Yeah, we all started that way, but you have a voice and you can do it. And we're here to help, and somebody will help you with it. So it's just opening up your mouth and getting out there and speak, because you can do it. So if you're a new teacher coming in at 18 or 21, or a teacher's assistant, and if you're older and you've been in the field for 40 years, you can still do it. So I just encourage everyone, no matter where you are or what you're doing, to go ahead and just be that voice for those who cannot speak up for themselves, because it is very rewarding, and I think you'll get just good endorphins, or all these brain things will come in that you'll really like. I mean, you'll be proud of yourself and do a lot of self-care. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie, you want to take it next?
Sure. I'll say this. When you get a brand new widget, whatever it is, what's the first thing that you do? Well, you don't usually keep it to yourself. You don't usually hide it. You don't usually say, well, golly, I really don't know if I can talk about this gadget or widget. No, we're usually on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're doing Instagram shots. We're shouting off the top of the world, look at my new widget. I stood in line for 10 hours at the fruit store, and I got this widget. And hey, now if you can do that for a widget, why can't you do something that really makes an impact on people, your community, no matter where you are in the ecosystem? And if you're interested in literacy ecosystems, give a look at the Houston Adult Literacy Blueprint. I'll give you 2 pages, page 19 and page 63. Now you have homework. There are 2 graphics on there. Those 2 graphics will take you a long way to understanding where you get your message and how to make it make sense. And don't be afraid to talk about adult education.
Thank you. and to our special guest of the hour, Olivia.
How am I going to top that? Jackie, really?
Hey, you're supposed to be, I'm your opening act.
I'm like, wait, what? Okay. Okay. Well, with bouncing off of Jackie, my message would be more towards the students out there, or the individuals, or the people that are not sure what they should do, if I should make that phone call, or if I should just keep on going with my life, the way it is now. As far as educational wise, I always push my children to the limit, and I tell them, you have to keep I want you to graduate, and thank the Lord they all graduated, and I did mention to them, I said, what really, inspired you? And the inspiration that they had mentioned was me. So you are that inspiration. You will be that inspiration. If not to any of your family, it would be for yourself. And I feel every day with the support that I was given from my family, especially my children, they were so excited for me, and they were, till this day, I still talk to my son, and I'm like, we compare GPAs and all this, he's like, oh, so we're both competitive people. So I'm just right there with him head to head. And I feel like you have to be very just again, I want to go back to the self-care, like you said, the pampering, but the self-care would be for your education and moving on forward and trying to empower and help others be there and help others with education in general. I mean, as a student, I can honestly speak from from both lives and both experiences or whatnot, and I know that if you just keep on going and don't give up, it's gonna be a blessing in life, and you're going to thank that teacher, that instructor, that motivator, and it's just going to be something that's going to be life changing. And I've mentioned, life changing is
so true.
Thank you.
That is so true. Thank you so much.
So we've heard that our advocacy helps communities. It helps students, right? Go take adult ed classes. It helps your family. It helps yourself. I mean, Sara, do you think any listener has an excuse now not to get out there and advocate?
I don't think so. And we will provide them with all the resources. And the first resource is to use the 3-click. They just need to go and use the 3-click system that we have on COABE's website.
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, follow COABE on social media. You'll get connected to all of these wonderful people here on the podcast, so you can follow them, see the amazing resources that they share. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on COABE's Adult Ed Advocast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Lots of ESL love, adult ed love. Yes, thank you. Great job. Yes.
You've been listening to Advocast, the adult education podcast. Your hosts have been Erin, Vobornik, and Sara Haghighi. This podcast is sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. And I'm your producer, Jeffrey Abramowitz. You can listen to this episode on COABE's YouTube channel or at www.coabe.org.